Good afternoon. What's going on? Seems to me it gets to be 4:30 faster and faster and faster and faster every single day. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Let's go with a good thing.
And quickly today, for sure.
Yeah, indeed. My goodness. So, how many of you were on with Mo earlier? Just by a quick show of hands. Any ahas from being on with Mo?
I'm not a terribly religious person, but one of the things I've always wanted to do is read the Bible, and I loved the quote she gave to it today, or she read from it today. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Can you repeat it?
Oh yeah, I could do that. I'm just looking at it because I actually wrote it down. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. I thought that was pretty awesome. Something to kind of remember.
There you go. What else? Anything else from Mo?
I don't know if you guys already said this.
Adonis, you fell off.
Mo said creativity flourishes in the absence of fear.
Yeah, creativity flourishes in the absence of fear, right? So my big aha from listening to Mo again is the same one I got the last time we had her kind of one-on-one with our ALCs a few months ago. And that was her answer to, like, when stuff happens, what do you do? And her answer is always the same. Her answer is you just deal with it. You just slog through it, right? And I'm always so pleased to have her remind us of that, because I think so many of us sometimes look for ways around it or under it or try to avoid it, whatever that it is. Just endure it. Just slog through it. That's the way to get to the other side, right? And we're kind of in one of those moments now, right? We're in a just endure it, just slog through it moment right now. So to make that moment just a little bit less oh, there we go. A little bit less serious. I wanted to end our day today with something we oftentimes begin our day with.
Barbara Parsons from Battle Creek, Michigan. Hi, Ellen. I thought you would enjoy this sign. It says 15 best things about our pubic schools. That is incredibly sad. I'm guessing one of the 15 things isn't spelling. Oh, man. You know, the worst part is they used pubic tax dollars to pay for that, which led to a large pubic outrage, and someone was pubically humiliated. Wow! Oh. Emma Browning from Coffs Harbour, Australia. Ellen, I stumbled across this photo of my brother and grandparents, and I had to send it to you. Seems fine. Wait, let's zoom in. That doesn't look so good. Uh-oh. That's not right. So that means Grandpa must have the cat in the hat. They've switched. Shay Fortune from Port Orange, Florida. Ellen, I saw this sign in a convenience store. The picture says it all. Extra fresh sperm. That's great. Oh. Well, you want it to be extra fresh, don't you? My only concern is if you buy it, when you get in the checkout line, does it count as one item or 10 billion? I don't know. Joanne Iconetti from Montreal, Canada. Hi, Ellen. Just wanted to share a picture with you. Something is definitely wrong with it. Just keep looking and see if there are 4 things in the picture. If you just look between the lady's legs right there, I think you'll see. See? And I say it all the time. It is why I don't wear skirts. It can happen. Mandy Adams from Troy, New York. I just saw this sign at the supermarket. Ha ha ha. It says porn and beans. Porn and beans. Good old porn and beans. Or as Tony calls it, lunch break.
All righty. So I hope that made you laugh. Anybody have porn and beans for lunch? Just a quick survey? No porn and beans today? All right, so a couple of quick things before we end the day. I am hearing, and I don't know if Paul or Tammy or Karen are on the call this afternoon. I heard something earlier today. One of our agents had a closing that didn't happen simply because they were utilizing funding from a local New York bank, not a big bank, but kind of a local New York bank. And again, I don't have all the details on this. And the bank just decided at the last moment that they were not going to fund the loan due to current circumstances. And the attorney for the buyers who we represented said this is the 3rd time that some local smallish New York bank in the last week or so has just decided not to fund a loan. So just be aware of that. If you have closings, maybe start inquiring with the loan officers how they're being funded and whether they're larger national companies or smaller banks, because we seem to be having at least a little hiccup with small New York banks funding property. The other thing I wanted to mention to you today is this. You've probably been hearing, if you read Inman or if you read any kind of real estate news, it's kind of every other day for the last 7 to 10 days, we hear a new national brand announcing a huge set of layoffs. And so I just wanted to address that and let you know why we're doing all the things that we're doing and working so hard to make sure that everybody in your world remains employed and remains fully employed for as long as we possibly can. Because I look at those layoffs, Compass, Coldwell Banker, and the rest of the Realogy companies, EXP, all have announced 40 to 50% cuts in all of their staffing across the board. Some of these companies that have programs that sounded really intriguing a month ago, those programs are all cut and gone, including Compass's concierge program. They pulled it back at first, even prior to the current scenario. They pulled it back, and now it's just cut, right? And it's the idea. It's kind of what Jason talked about this morning, right? If you're an organization that is primarily about exploiting and finding ways that you can disrupt by just throwing money at things, you don't have a play when money stops. You don't have a play when things go sideways, right? And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of these brands. And when you live inside of an organization, as all of you do, that both on the national and international level and the local level does not carry $1 of debt. We're privately owned companies, both Gary's and ours. all privately owned companies without a dollar's worth of debt. It allows us to do things and play at a level where the first thing that we need to do is not cut everybody's jobs. Because again, the way I look at that is, if we were to go to our staff and say, okay, you're all at 50% pay, or half of you are furloughed until this is over, that to me is then coming to you and saying, because we're cutting your services, right? I mean, our staff are working hard from home, being remote, and all that stuff to continue the services that they provide for you, and that's an important piece of what I believe our deal is, right? That's the piece that we deliver back to you. So just know how that's all working, know what that looks like. Know that stock prices for most of these companies are now in the toilet and dropping. I didn't think you'd get lower than the toilet, and yet apparently there is something lower than toilet, right? Because they're continuing to drop. So be mindful of the business aspects of all of this, and what we're doing to attempt to kind of ward all that off. There's lots of different things, lots of different things we have up our sleeve to make sure, because we're prepared to make sure that none of those things happen, to make sure that your services don't get cut. So we know how hard you're working, and we expect to continue to work just as hard to make sure that we are here to support you every step of the way throughout the remainder of this restrictive period. We spoke earlier, your leadership and I spoke earlier today, and we've decided to host another seller session. That'll be hosted on Monday at 7 o'clock. Because we have Passover and then Good Friday and Easter, we just couldn't find a great opportunity to do that prior to Monday. But once Monday comes, I think most of those major holidays are now over, and so we will look to put that on. And what that's going to be, for those of you who are interested in inviting your sellers to that, it's going to pretty much be a market update. It's going to be here's what's happened since the last time we spoke. Because we spoke to them 2 weeks ago tonight, believe it or not. It has been 2 weeks since we spoke to your sellers, and so it only feels like 7.5 years. The opportunity to give them just kind of a market update, what's happening, what's real, what's not real, why some of the things that are happening are important to the decisions that they have to make, and what some of their options might be, seems to be a good opportunity to get that information out to them. So we will tomorrow send you something, an email template to invite them, and we encourage you to be on as well, so that you can get that info and then continue those conversations. But we're hoping that is as helpful to you and your sellers as we think it is. So watch for that on Monday evening at 7 o'clock. We also heard from Mo that Red Day, which I think a lot of us were considering was just going to be kind of canceled this year, is anything but canceled. Mo was very clear that Red Day is not canceled. Red Day is going to be held on Thursday, the 14th, I believe, of May. And we just have to figure out the how, right? We have to figure out what it is we're going to be doing. Clearly, by the 14th of May, we are not all going to be in a group doing some project someplace. It may need to be a virtual thing. It may need to be and I'm not sure what, right? There were some conversations and some idea sharing on Mo's call, but just recognize that your ALCs will need some assistance. Your ALCs and leadership will need some assistance in figuring out the best path forward on that. So we'll look maybe next week to put something on the calendar, just a half hour or so, where we can all zoom in and kind of noodle that around and see what we come up with.
Yeah. Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
I reached out to my ALC today after that call with Mo, and they're already coming up with some ideas. So any of you who have ideas, let Dan or I know what that project, what that idea could be to do Red Day virtually. So let us know now with your ideas.
Yeah, just to seed your minds a little bit with what some of the ideas that have been thrown out there, but a lot of them have been focused on like drives type things, either like food drives, or like equipment drives for hospitals, for food drives for hospitals, or just straight fundraising to help local businesses. Those are just some of the ideas that have been thrown out there, thus far. If you want to start thinking about either organizations or businesses that you think might need help, or some other ideas on how we can kind of help our local communities.
Love it.
Love that idea, Jeannie. Yeah. What about everybody pitches in and makes masks, right? Stuff like that. Exactly. Those are the kind of ideas that we're looking for.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So do feed Dan and Steve those ideas, and we'll get back to you with what that's looking like. Mo's point to us was, Red Day was designed to give back to our communities, and right now our communities need us more than ever. So the idea of canceling versus just pivoting, right? That's going to be the word of at least the first half of the year, if not the entire year. We're going to pivot again and figure out what do we do just like we did with Mega Camp a couple of years ago, right? Mega Camp was scheduled to occur in August, and just before Mega Camp, Hurricane Harvey, I think, came and wiped out Houston. And so we pivoted on Mega Camp, and instead of having a business meeting, it became a relief and recovery effort by the attendees of that event. So recognize that thinking about these things differently and just bring a sense of creativity to what we're challenged with is one of the ways to not be bored at home. Right? So put your thinking cap on and let us know what you think. We're excited to figure out what that contribution by our market centers will be this year to each of our communities. Anybody have anything come up that we did not address today, or you have some questions that you need to have asked before we wrap for the day?
Yeah, I actually had a question. I had a price reduction on one of my listings. So typically we do call arounds, and I was leaving a few messages and it just felt awkward. People are sitting at home and I'm saying, hey, my messages were, we have this home and we're taking all the safety precautions, but it just felt awkward. So I'm just putting it out there. Has anyone done call arounds in the last few weeks, and how are you doing it? Anyone?
Looks like it might just be you, Jeannie.
Right, Bueller.
That's right. Hello, is this thing on? So here's my thought. I
was trying to, make a positive spin on it, and Todd and I, we couldn't figure out a script.
So what I might look for is to start it with, just like anything else. I mean, we were going to be talking about expireds and then moving on to our seller unit in Ignite tonight. And that, if you're still reaching out to expireds, I think you have to put something in front of it, right? And so the idea of, hey, this is Jeannie Kassendorf. I just wanted to make sure that you and your family were safe and healthy. We also wanted to let you know that we do have a client who's a neighbor of yours who could use your help. They are interested in continuing to market their home. We're doing most everything virtually at this point in time, and we just wanted to let you know about a reduction in their price. If you should know anyone who is also interested in virtually viewing property, we'd love to make that connection or something like that.
I love that neighbor that could use your help. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Right. And so because I think when we make it human, right, and I'm going to tell you what, I think that some of these scripts that we're using right now, because we feel a little bit like, right, is it too much business in their face, and how do we wrap it in some bubble wrap? I think they will stick with us, because a lot of these scripts may get us further with more people if we're calling and having human conversations first, and then offering the other reason for our call. I think you can't call anybody today without saying the words, are you and your family safe and healthy, right? That's why I'm calling. I had somebody send me like a nasty text this morning, like a text this morning, and my aunt, somebody I don't really know. It's one of your clients. They might be nice to you, but sometimes not terribly nice to me. And so I got this kind of text this morning, and what I chose to do was to answer it by saying, "Hey, it's great to hear from you. First and foremost, are you and your family safe and healthy?" Hoping that is the case, and if not, please reach out and let us know how we can help you. And then gave a short little answer to the that was put out there, right? And so recognize that when we choose that over almost anything else, you kind of can't go wrong. And at the same time, recognize that you may run into every once in a while person who wants to give you an earful of that's not important right now. Why would you be wasting everyone's time? Why would you even be calling, right? If that happens, you say the two words that get you out of everything, right? I am so sorry. Thank you so much for your time. I do hope you stay safe and healthy, right? And move on. There's no reason to defend it. To say, well, no, but you don't understand. These people really have to sell a house, and I was just trying. No, just don't defend it. Move on, right? Say I'm sorry. Say thank you, and move forward. Anything else? Any other questions that we have tonight? That's a good question, Jeannie.
And that was a great answer, Rick.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm glad it was helpful. And so here's one of the things I'll challenge you with, right? I will challenge you if you're not experiencing some of those same questions. I wonder, are you not being proactive enough in reaching out to people regarding business masked with a human element right now, right? I would have loved to have had 6 or 10 of you jump on and say, oh, you know what, here's what I'm doing. Oh, you know what, I think that this is the better path to go. And I'm a little concerned that nobody jumped on that, because it says to me that we may be holding back on some of those things. I think the answer is not hold back. You absolutely want to be reaching out. You just need to be reaching out in an appropriate manner, right? One of the things that was said on the Mo call, I think, was, are we going? Or no, it was on the Bold Pivot call. We met one of the coaches for Bold Pivot at 3 o'clock. Are you going to, when this is all over, do you look back and say that was a big obstacle for me or a big opportunity for me? It will be one of those two things, right? One of those two things will be real for you and your business. This time period is either an obstacle for you or it's an opportunity, and you get to choose. I'd love to know which you choose. Put it in the chat box so I know that you're hearing what I'm saying, right? Obstacle or opportunity, obstacle or opportunity. And when you choose one of those, are you creating some action around what you choose, right? If you're choosing opportunity, what are those actions that you're wrapping that opportunity in? I also heard, I can't remember where I hear any of this stuff anymore. Write you know how in Bold sometimes you write that letter to yourself and you give it to Diana, and then she sends it to you a year later, right? There was a suggestion that we use that exercise in a shorter term capacity, and so write a letter to yourself that you're going to open on September the 1st. What does the next couple of months look like for you? What does it look like for your business? And then stick that away somewhere. I'd say bring them into us, but then you have to leave your house, and we don't want you to do that. So just stick them away somewhere, right? On September 1st, it's already in my phone to remind each of you to go and find that letter that you wrote and open that up. Because when you write that letter and start to behave as if, right, that creates action around what you just wrote. What do you want to see for yourself in September?
Just mail them all to Rick and Steve. They'll mail them back to you in September.
Yeah, don't do that. If you saw me opening my mail when I get home, please don't torture me like that. With the gloves, and you can't do the gloves, and taking the thing out, throwing thing away and then wiping. No, please don't send me your mail. I barely want the mail I'm getting. All right. Anything else
I
before we
spray
finish?
all mine down with alcohol every day.
Yes. Anything that comes into my house and that gets hosed down with some version of alcohol.
Absolutely.
So before we leave, I have to show you, that was Alice, I think, right? I have to show her this because it was so funny to me. When I was playing Jason Abrams this morning, 2 or 3 times during that video, he shared his screen. And when he shared his screen, he was in the small little corner, right, of the screen. What he was showing was big on the screen, and he was just in the corner. And on my Zoom, on the right-hand side of my Zoom was all of your faces, and Alice was at the bottom. And so Alice was in the bottom part of my Zoom that overlaid Jason Abrams. So you had Jason Abrams talking like this with Alice's head on top. And I took a picture of it because it made me laugh so much. I just want to see if I can. So there's Alice, there's Jason Abrams' body. And it was even funnier when he was doing his whole thing. It looked like one of those jib-jab like bobbleheads, but it was Alice Farina's head on Jason Abrams' body. It made me laugh so much. So thank you, Alice, for being exactly in the right spot to be the bobblehead of Jason Abrams earlier, because it made my entire day. All right, guys, if you have nothing else, have a lovely, lovely evening. We're going to start Ignite in 3 minutes. So if those of you are joining us, for those of you who are doing virtual Seders this evening, is that tonight, virtual Seders, right? Happy Passover. For those of you who either are holding Seders tonight or not, read the story, know what Passover is really about. Because I'm going to tell you what, when you really understand the story of Passover, it's very relevant for where we are right now. And I was kind of fascinated by the background of what Passover really is. There's a reason it's called Passover, and I want you guys to go home and do your homework and Google that and read about that, because it's an important story to know. Guys, have a great night. Enjoy your Passovers. I will see you tomorrow bright and early at 9 o'clock. Take care. 2 minutes for Ignite. Good afternoon. 5 o'clock. Everyone have their adult beverage? I'm going with my Costco water today. This they still have. Actually, they don't have these at Costco. They don't have the little ones. They only have the big ones left at Costco. I don't know when they got the little ones left. All righty. Let's just take a quick peek here. All righty. So let's dive in. You had some homework. Let's start with homework if we could. I'd love for someone to let me know what the results were from hitting 30% of your database.
I'm at 22.8%, Rick.
22.8%. Okay, so I'm gonna boot you out, right? I think I can boot you out so you can go get on the phone to get that up to 30. Where's Chris? Remove from class. No, I'm kidding. You should see some of the faces of the people who are like, oh, he's really gonna do that? I wouldn't do that to you, right? And so recognize that that 22.8. I love the 0.8, right? Because that's actually closer to 23. So how many people is 7%? And then how are you going to close that, right? Because now we have to work on the next 30% between now and next Wednesday. So of the 23% that you did hit, Chris, what were the results, if you don't mind sharing that? And I don't mean how many appointments you got, because that's not the whole goal of this right now.
Yeah, so what I found is it's been extremely easy for me to reach out to people, and this is like this is something that's benefiting me, like this craziness going on. Before I had like this drunk monkey about reaching out to my sphere of influence and people that were close to me, because I didn't want to come off like I'm only calling them for real estate. So now I'm just reaching out to reconnect and see how everything's doing, and whether or not real estate comes up doesn't even matter. It just gives me an opportunity for me to touch them with a text or a call in the next week or two and keep that relationship forming.
So true. So true.
I'm totally utilizing this time to go from my sphere of influence, which might have been whatever. So I have 800 people in my command database, and maybe 50 or 75 people would say Chris is in real estate, and I'm taking this opportunity to make sure that number goes double or triple by the time this is over, you know? Got it.
I love that. And so I mean, what Chris is saying is what we were just talking about on our 4:30 call, right? Is this going to be over, and will you look back and say this was an obstacle that stopped you, or was it an opportunity, right? What you just heard Chris say was that this actually pushed him forward from, I loved the honesty about, you know what, drunk monkey, I wasn't really all that into calling the people who know me, because it sounded like a business call. I didn't want to feel like a business troll, right? Because those are the things that get into our head. And so this has allowed him, and hopefully many of you, to just kind of move past that, because it does become a responsibility to connect with these folks. It's like, if you don't do it, then you're the schmuck, right? It's in our heads before something like this happens, you feel like the schmuck, schmuck, right? I don't mean to offend anybody with a schmuck, but that's just the word that came up in my head. So you're kind of like, you know what? Now I have a responsibility. We were on the phone with Mo Anderson before, and she said, she has a house in Oklahoma City and in Austin. She said, in each of those two places, I do two things where I spend a lot of money all the time. She said, I love to send people flowers, and so I have a florist in each of those cities where I spend a lot of money. And neither of those florists have called her to say, hey, how are you? Is everyone safe and healthy? How's your family? Do you need anything? How can we help? She said, I also have a favorite restaurant in each of those cities. Now, I get restaurants are sort of closed, but she said, you know what? The restaurant owners, they definitely know who I am, and I spend a lot of money there. No one's called me to say, how are you? No one's called me to say, you know what, we miss seeing you. So recognize that we're in a unique opportunity to really maximize that and stand out as a professional, because the other professionals in the worlds of you people in your database are not doing that. And my concern is that some of you are falling into that category, right, of not doing it. Here's what I'll tell you. If you won't call your database and check in on them now, it's likely you will never call your database. And if you're never going to call your database, you probably don't deserve those people in your database. You probably don't deserve the business from them, right? Is that a little harsh? I didn't mean it to be. And yet it's kind of true, right? We expect this loyalty from them, but we're not giving them anything first, right? Cool. All right, what else? What else have you noticed from your 30%?
Hey, Rick.
Hi, Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi. I found that people were actually happy to hear from me, even though I was, I hadn't talked to them in many years. I just had a nice long conversation with someone who was the DJ for our wedding 7 years ago. And we haven't talked since then. And he was so happy that I had called him and texted him just to say, hi, how you doing? Is there anything we can help you with?
Yeah.
Please let us know.
And you know what else I noticed? So Stephanie, stay on if you could. So not only are people excited to hear from you, how does it make you feel while you're having that call and once you hang up?
Good.
Yeah, it makes you feel awesome, right? It's like, wow, I didn't shy away from a relationship that I've ignored for 7 years.
I'm a lot like Chris. It takes me a lot to pick up the phone or to text or just say, these people don't want to be bothered by me. I haven't talked to them in so long. And, this is pushing me to do so. And it was good. It was a feel good.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, make them feel good. And then you get to feel good because you're making them feel good. And you get to feel like you're accomplishing something at the same time, right? People need people. And right now people don't have people around them. So let's be that for them. Go ahead, Nancy.
Rick, my experience was the group that I most enjoyed reaching out to were some of my past clients who have moved out of state, because I haven't talked to them in a while, and it was just such a genuine care conversation. So those were my favorites.
Love that. Love that. So there's a great reminder from Nancy. Don't forget. It's not just about people who are still close, right? Who are those people who have moved away? Who are those people that you haven't seen or heard from in a while that maybe aren't part of your everyday, right? Let's be checking on them as well in other parts of the country. My guess is that if they lived here, so then people say, well, what's the business benefit of that? First of all, right now, there doesn't necessarily have to be a business benefit, right? There needs to be a human benefit. Start there. And the simple answer to the business benefit is that if Nancy's reaching out to people who are now scattered across the country and she knows them because the foundation was a relationship she built when they were all here, right? Might they still know someone here? Might they decide to come back, right? There's still a reason for people staying in touch with one another, right? There's a networking version of that goes on. There's a referral possibility that goes on there. But at the end of the day, it's about being as human as you possibly can, because that will come back to you in so many different ways. What I'm so excited to hear from what you're reporting back to me is that just calling and saying, how are you, is so easier for me to do, and it's pushing me to create momentum and start a process that now, next week or 2 weeks from now, right, when I'm done with my whole database. Because here's the thing, if we're still in some kind of a restrictive period by the end of the month, I'm just going to ask you to go and call them all over again in May. Just so you don't panic when I say it later on. Like, be expecting that. Because people then, that's a whole month, right? A whole month or more has gone by since you've connected with some people. And now you can call them and like, oh my God, can you believe we're still doing this? Is everyone in your house still alive? Like, has anyone killed each other yet? Has anyone gone to jail? Right? How many puzzles have you done? Okay, we're up to 74, right? Oh, 77, wow, you beat me, right? You get to have those kinds of fun conversations, which then earns you the right, once all of this starts to go away, to call back and say, hey, you know what, it was so great to speak with you the last couple of months. I realized how much I miss communicating. I said that weird, didn't I? Communicating with you. Miss communicating with you. I just wanted to give you a quick call today and let you know that here's some good news that I have to share. We are back in business. So is it okay if I ask you, who do you know is looking to buy, sell, or create wealth by investing in real estate? Because now all the restrictions are gone and we got some ground to make up. So I'm looking for your help. I'm looking for people who want opportunity. There's no reason why you can't set up those kinds of calls that create the business calls later on. Make sense? How about one more? Anybody else want to report their 30%?
Yeah, I'll say something.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, so, well, I don't leave Chris hanging out there by himself. So I only did 18%. So somebody else on the board. But it was productive. You know, I hate calling. So I did do a fair amount of calling, but I did a lot of texting. I did a lot of emailing. And a combination of where it's more my comfort zone, for sure. But I also found that in the written exchanges where I just kind of reached out and touched, hope you guys are doing okay, that type of thing, they would come back and offer the same and then say something about real estate. And where I was able to then in a sentence or two kind of acknowledge that the market's still going with, you know, some modifications, keeping everybody safe, et cetera, without feeling like I'm trolling for business. And verbally that came up as two, but in my own head, I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted to try like I wasn't trolling for business and felt uncomfortable, you know, with heard the discomfort in my own voice, you know,
Sure.
doing that. So I was really good with the writing. And I also used Len's suggestion. I sent out some gifts to some young families and that was a big hit.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. And thank you for the honesty of putting those things out there, putting those numbers out there, putting some of the struggles that you have out there. Recognize that there's probably nobody on this call that doesn't have some version of that drunk monkey that sits on your shoulder and tells you not to do things, right? That's just real for human beings. And so the good news is if you experience that in any way, shape, or form, it just convinces you and everyone around you that you are in fact human. So good on you for that. The thing I want to underline with what Steve just said is a couple of things. First and foremost, be careful about affirmations, right? Because affirmations are something that we say kind of over and over again. And when we say things, I think Steve, you said, you know, I hate calling. That ends up being an affirmation, right? And so if you say that too often, either to yourself or outside, you end up buying into what the programming that you're putting in your own head, right? There's different affirmations that I will guide you towards. Things like they're home, they're happy, and they love to hear from me, right? Because what I'm hearing from the people who connected with people is exactly that they are home, they are happy, and they really are happy to hear from you, right? Now's a perfect opportunity, I think, for a quick conversation about digital communication versus phone to phone or face to face. And since we're limited in the face to faceness that we get to have today, let's talk about phone to phone. One of the things that I learned when I became a broker, I wish I would have learned this prior to that because it would have helped me as a listing and sales agent as well. I learned it when I became the guy as we opened our offices, and I became the guy where when some of your clients were unhappy, I got to have those phone conversations, right? And sometimes you didn't even get to have the conversation; they just went straight to me. So, you know, I am the luckiest duck on the planet because I get to have all those conversations. And one of the things I learned is that it's so tempting. Right? Some of the conversations, the complaint conversations, they're not always complaints, but you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes they come to me via text or email, and it is so tempting to just respond digitally back. And what I learned was when you keep the conversation digital, you don't get the points that you get when you move it to a phone-to-phone or a face-to-face, right? So I completely encourage each of you to, in order to get through your database, right? Be on the phone, be texting, do use both, and yet recognize that you don't get as much credit as you get when you actually pick up the phone, right? You make an impression because people feel as though you have now stopped your day to pick up the phone and have a personal communication with them. A text, I know when I never do it with anyone on this call, ever. But sometimes with people who are other than you, sometimes I'm responding via text when I'm doing something else, right? Never to any of you. When it's any of you, I'm sorry, you have to wait, hold on a second. And then I have just you in my head, right? Because we all do it. Text is something you can do while you're doing something else. And so we know that, and so we don't give as much credit to the text response as we do the phone call, right? And I worry a little bit about that. I know we're in a texting world, but I worry a little bit about that from a human to human perspective, that we're okay leaving it digital. And I'm going to really encourage you to use digital as a follow-up, use digital as a tool. If for some reason you're not grabbing somebody on the telephone, shoot them a quick text. But shoot them a quick text that says, "Hey Nancy, I've been trying to reach you. I just wanted to check in with you. When's a time that you can answer my call? When's a time that we can communicate?" Right? What if you use text instead of saying, "I'm going to just now forget it. Nancy hasn't returned my phone call for 2 or 3 times. I'm just going to text her what I wanted to say to her." I would just say, "Hey, I want to talk. When's a good time?" Right? Use that digital to make it more personal. Just a thought, because I think that you'll find you get better bonds with more people for longer periods of time if you make it more and more personal. There was another point that Steve made that I wanted to underline because I thought it was a really good point, and now I can't remember what it was. Can you tell I need a haircut? I was thinking the other day, maybe I could go and find someone and like drive up, stick my head out the window, put the window like all the way up, and just have my head out the window with a mask on so someone could cut my hair and then drive away. I'm not sure that would work so well, but.
What is Mike doing to his
times like this, DiBiase, that I'm a little jealous of you. Maybe I should just go your route and just shave it all off. What do you think?
We'll go for haircuts together.
Rick, a device
Yes.
like they have, NASA has when they have rocks from moon, looking at, where you stick your hands.
That's right. The big gloves for my haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll just go home and like do it up. So it might happen tonight. So God knows what it's going to look like tomorrow.
With the Flowbee.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's move forward, right? So you get the point. We don't have to beat this horse any deader, right? Really focus in on getting those calls and communication with your clients done. There's a reason why we've been saying it every time we're together. We've been talking about it. There's a reason why every single time I go on to KW Connect and listen to something else that's been recorded or one of the live streams, somebody else mentions, you know what, if you're not taking care of your clients right now, if you're not reaching out and calling them, you're A, doing them a massive disservice, and B, for the most part, you might as well hang up your ballet shoes, right? This is probably not the business for you. If this if this opportunity that you have in front of you isn't capitalized on. So for those of you who have sat out for the last week or two and said, you know what, I'm going to get to that later, your time is right now. Your time is, we finish at 6:30. Make one. Yes, at 6:30 tonight. Yes, I know it's dinner time. People will get over it, right? And what's interesting is that the people who really need to get over it aren't the people you're calling at 6:30. It's you. You have to get over the idea that it's 6:30. That's all in your head. I can't tell you the last time I ate dinner at 6:30. I wish I ate dinner at 6:30. So here's the point. Lean in, get this job done. No excuses. Just get the job done. People need you. Don't wuss out on this. There's a bold law that I'm going to repeat. The bold law is how you behave in here is how you behave everywhere. And so what that means is if I gave you 30% of your database to be called by tonight as homework and you chose not to do it, the big concern is that even though we're in a classroom type setting and that was kind of the homework, well, once you're out of the classroom setting, it's just your business. If you're not doing it when we're all doing it, you will absolutely sit that out when it's only up to you, right? When there's no other form of accountability, when there's no other discussion around it. So be really careful around that. It's a law for a reason, right? Because it shows up over and over and over and over again. If you're sitting at home thinking, wow, you know, he's spending a whole lot of time on this. Wow, he's kind of making me feel guilty that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Good, that's the point. I want you to feel guilty. I want you to feel a sense of responsibility. I want you to feel something that motivates you to act and get that job done. Recognize that the world needs you right now. Don't let the world down.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
May I share very quickly my experience with the homework? Because I have a positive result. At Productivity Coaching, we created an email that comes from contribution, and I sent it to 1,400 people, to my entire database. I got really good responses, but I also, what I would like to mention is that I got a referral from someone who knew me so many years ago, and now she put me in touch with a client from Washington, D.C., and I had the consultation on Zoom, and now I'm in the process of selling a house virtually. So I have been, that's why I didn't come in to class on Monday, because I was actually on showings. I was out showing Norwalk, 5 properties in Norwalk virtually on camera. And now we have a house that she chose, and we are working on putting an offer on it.
There you go.
Met this person, yeah, and it's going really well.
So let's remember this. Thank you, Silva, for sharing that. A, congratulations. B, great job. I mean, that's taking lemons and making lemonade, right? There's an opportunity versus obstacle conversation that Silva clearly had in her head and said, all right, well, you know what? I can either sit at home and say, this sucks, now I can't make any money, or I can figure out a different way to make money, right? And so when you take that stand for yourself, when you take that stand for your income and just figure it out, stuff happens. Stuff happens, right? Right. Okay. I read something, I think it was a year ago. It was when Serena Williams had come back and was looking to win the US Open again, which I think I'm talking about last year's US Open, maybe 2 ago. I think Donna's telling me 2 ago. Yeah, so, and I read something that that's always just kind of stuck in my head. Nike had this great commercial out when Serena was attempting to come back and win that 2014 fourth, I think, Grand Slam title. And the slogan was, it's only crazy until you do it. Right? And that kind of sticks in the back of my head. And it doesn't, you can take the word crazy out and replace it with almost anything, right? It's only uncomfortable until you do it. It's only difficult until you do it. It's only anything until you do it. Because then once you do it, you've done it. And okay, well, I'll just go do it again, right? And so Silva had a choice in this whole experience to say, I don't know, sell a house virtually? That can't be done. Who would do that? Or she could look at it and say, all right, well, we have a system in place. We have a program. I know what to say to these people to help guide them forward. Let's just go do it that way. This person wants to buy a house. And I wonder how many of you have people in your worlds right now who want to buy a house or need to sell a house that you're not giving a channel to get that done to. Right? Don't be the one to say, no, not now, let's wait. Instead, and I'm not saying go and do business as usual, because that is the last thing that I don't think I've said that. Holy Christmas, Donna, what are you drinking? Ooh, baby. All right, can we be socially distant with me at your house?
Actually, I host happy hours on Zoom, so I'll invite you.
Okay, well, as long as you can send me what you're drinking to my house and then invite me, that'd be awesome, because I don't know if I can make that. Or send me directions. There's the ticket. All righty. So let's cruise forward. I think we were in the middle of something massively important, but we got through it. Let's cruise forward. What I'd like to do, I had intended to talk with you a little bit about expireds today and open houses as the two last sources of business that we didn't touch yet. And instead, what I think I'd like to do, unless you tell me differently, what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to put both of those on hold first. I do want to get to them, but I want to dive into our seller unit because I think that there are some things that some of you could utilize right now as you're hosting consultations and working with current sellers. And I think that for those of you who are new or newer in the business, there are things that, there are tools that we need to discuss that you might not have. And so I want you to be able to utilize this time at home to build some of these tools. So if it's all right with you, and I can see Silva, Donna, Neil, and Bogdan, except he just walked away, right? So it's going to be up to the four of you to give me permission to kind of pivot on the program and go with sellers. Bogdan's saying yes. Okay, so we got 4 thumbs up. So for those of you who said no, please let's go to expireds, which trust me, I know better. And yet for those of you who are hoping for expireds, we will do that. We're just going to do that probably perhaps on Monday when we finish up our seller unit today and Friday, right? So let's take a breath. That feels good, right? I said a breath, Gilbert, not a drink. Donna heard take a, and she said, okay. Let's have a conversation around sellers, right? Because the list side of the business is an interesting side of the business. Talk to me a little bit about what a focus on the list side of the business brings to you. Why is it important for you to focus on the list side of the business? There's a whole long list of things we need to discuss around that before we dive into tools and scripts. So why the list side of the business? Why are you focused there? Go ahead, Kimberly.
Income. It gives us more control over our time.
So it is definitely the more leveraged side of the business, right? You get to, you can manage 15 or maybe even 20 listings at a time with some administrative help. How many real I'm giving you the answer. How many A buyers can you work with at any given time realistically? A buyers, people who need to find a house, right? I agree. I think that answer is one side or the other of 5, right? Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 6. Maybe if you're superhuman, you can push out 7 and still have some sort of a life. But recognize that somewhere in that 5 to 6 range is kind of where you max out on A buyers who need your time. So you can handle 2 or 3 times more listings at one time than you can buyers. And so the opportunity for volume is much bigger. Go ahead, Cindy.
Income.
Income, talk about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, with buyers, you could be spinning your wheels. You could work with buyers for 2 days, or you could be working with them for 2 years. Whereas with the list side, if you're a good listing agent and the client listens to you, to your advice, and prices correctly, you're going to sell that house. And you may have to take a reduction at some point, but you're going to eventually sell that house. A lot faster than some of the buyers.
So I love that answer, and I'm going to interpret it as you may be in more control on the list side than you are on the buy side. We're going to give you some opportunities to maintain control on both sides with some scripts and some concepts on both sides. And yet the listing side does give you that opportunity, right? Because it's more leveraged. You get to list the property, and then you get to engage the entire industry to assist you in making money faster, right? On the buy side, you don't really have that opportunity. It's you. On the list side, you get to engage everybody else to make that money faster. Love it. Go ahead, Fiona.
On the listing side, you can also get buyers. So when you have your open houses, then you have the opportunity to kind of double up your money.
100%, right? So it's the squeezing the orange conversation, isn't it? You take one listing, that one listing should really over the course of the next 30 or 45 days should sell. It should point you in the direction of another listing client, and it should bring you at least 1, maybe 2, depending, real buyers, right? So that's minimally 2 or 3, maybe even as much as 4 pieces of business from that one listing. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh yeah. You. Oh, it also brings other listings, because a lot of people that buy need to sell. And so, coming from us who gets all of our business, or most used to, from open houses, many times we would get listings and buyers from our listings.
100%. The first thing I'm going to say is, Mike, you do an incredible Kim.
I can throw my voice.
Amazing. Did anyone else think that Kim was actually speaking? It just says Michael Tromba on my screen, so that's why I called on Mike. So you can change the name on your screen and have it say Mike and Kim, so then I can say Mike and Kim.
Oh, I'll have to do that.
Fashion.
Right. The 3 little dots. It's all in the 3 little dots. If you click the 3 little dots, it'll say rename, and you can change your name to whatever you want it to be.
Fine, I'm doing great.
Right. If Fiona wants me to call her Fancy Fiona, she can say Fancy Fiona on her thing, right? I'm not sure why she would want me to call her Fancy Fiona, but hey, you know what? It's almost happy hour, and we're all a little punchy. Why not, right? Okay. Why else? Any other reasons you can think of? Go ahead, Bob. Say it again.
Buyers are liars.
Oh, now, so if any of you have ever taken any of my buyer classes, you know that is one of the phrases that I detest.
They're not liars.
Right? Because here's what's real. My belief is that buyers sometimes can be perceived as being liars, and yet that puts us in that world of, if they were different, I'd be better, right? And so instead of taking that as a truth, I think what we have to do is recognize that those buyers who start to be perceived as liars, we have to turn that back on ourselves and say, okay, so what do I need to do differently to help create a different outcome for this particular client? Right? Because the reality is, it's not just buyers who are sometimes perceived as being liars, right? The only reason we don't say sellers are liars is because it doesn't rhyme, right? So recognize that same concept exists on the seller side, where sometimes they say one thing and it feels like they're doing something else. And yet, what I want you to really, really own is you can't change clients. Can't change clients. The clients are who they are. And our responsibility is to meet them where they are and continue to ask ourselves the question, how can I be better to help them see what they need to see? How can I be different to explain it a different way, to show them a different graph, to have a different level of dialogue where they are changed, right? That's ultimately our challenge. Our challenge is not to learn stuff and be here and pronounce what we know. Right? You hear me say oftentimes, like, leave the white horse at home, stop riding it on your white horse to save the day, right? That's not what people hire us to do. They hire us to examine where they themselves are and get back into our own bodies and say, all right, the normal things that I do with everybody else, that's not helping here. And so I have to look inward now and say, okay, what do I need to do differently? How am I going to do things differently? What am I going to, who else might I engage, right? To communicate the same thing in a different way, to maybe get someone to understand something differently. Just remember, it's always about you being a better version of you than it is. Because what I found is that, and trust me when I tell you, I struggle with this all the time. Because it's easy for me to say that, and then people frustrate me. Because I have very little patience, and then people frustrate me, and they frustrate me quickly, right? And so I have to, in my own head, sit and remember, okay, Rick, what can you do to be different? What different questions can you ask? What other approach is there? Is there a video? Is there a story? Is there an analogy you can make? Is there a faster way to say what you're trying to say? Is there a slower way to say it? How can I be different to get to a better result? Instead of saying, oh my God, these people are such idiots, right? Because especially those of you who have as much patience as will fit on the tip of this pen, right? And remember, I know a lot of you, so I know that some of you do have as much patience as will fit on the tip of this pen. That's just a human trait. It's not a criticism. I'm the same way. I don't have a whole ton of patience, right? Without work, right? Without work. Naturally, some of us just have a shorter fuse. You're always called on to be a better version of you to help your clients be better, right? And Diana Kokoska teaches us that you just don't get to better until you first get to
different.
Different. You got it. Thank you. You can tell she's like halfway done with that drink. Did you hear she kind of sang that? Different. Next it's going to be different. I'm not sure how many it takes though, Donna. And I'm not sure how many you're on. So maybe we should start there. That is the last time Donna Gilbert will bring a big fluffy drink to a call. Because, oh, but Kim has the same big, huge glass now that I see that. Holy cow. Oh boy. All right. Well, we might have to end early because I think everyone's all of a sudden be like passing out. And P.S. we are going to end a little bit early tonight because I know that Marissa has a happy hour starting at 6:30, I believe, right? And so it will be on this channel. So we're going to end a little bit early so Marissa can set herself up, and then you guys can jump back on and enjoy that happy hour. So knowing that the list side of our business brings us all of those things, right? The list side of the business also brings us the opportunity to have help, right? When you focus on the list side, it is far simpler to find and train agents to carry the buy side of your business than it is to find a listing specialist that will do things the way you need them to be done to create the success in your business that you look for, right? It's not impossible. I know some people who for reasons I simply cannot explain, love the buy side of the business more than the list side of the business. And they choose to stay engaged on that side. And as they grow their team, they leverage out the list side. It doesn't happen very often. Usually it's the other way around, right? But recognize that is an opportunity for you. Recognize that you have, well, you know what, let's not go there just yet. So that being said, listings also bring you exposure, right? Online exposure that buyers don't really bring you. They bring you marketing opportunities, which buyers don't really bring you. They bring you signs, right? Which is just more exposure out in the marketplace. So all those things lumped into that one big bucket of list, is they explain why the phrase "you have to list to last" exists, right? And if you've never heard that phrase, I want you to write it down. I want you to stitch it in a pillow, do whatever you need to do, and look at that often. You have to list to last. Tell me why it is that agents who are new or newer to the business almost always gravitate towards being working with buyers first before they start driving the list side of their business. Why do you think that is?
Takes less skill to work with buyers.
So Jacqueline says it takes less skill to work with buyers. What I would say is there is a perception that there may be less skill involved to work with buyers. I think if you're doing it right, there's as much skill, if not more, right, on the buy side as on the list side. And yet there is certainly a perception that, well, we can just meet people, put them in our car, or meet them at a house and turn on the lights and sell a property, right? That there's a passiveness that I think a lot of people associate with the buy side of the business that is that's actually false, right? If you're doing it well.
Rick.
Yes.
I would like to talk just very briefly about myself. When I first came into the business, I dreaded the thought of being a listing agent because I didn't really have the confidence. But somehow I pushed through that sort of barrier, and I now proudly say that I'm a listing agent, so that it took a lot of courage.
So I appreciate that transparency, Fiona, because that is another reason why when people get into the business, they tend to work with more buyers than sellers, because there is a perception that for some reason you have to know more or be more or something as a listing agent. And it's funny to me because when we go through the next 4 or 5 sessions and we get through our seller unit and then our buyer unit, the scripts are the same thickness, right? The information you need to know is the same, right? Your negotiating skills, though may be different on different sides, your negotiating skills still need to be top notch in all of that. And so at the end of the day, I think Silva just nailed it, right? At the end of the day, it's kind of just in our heads. It is a perception. And so knowing that it's more of a perception than it is anything else, I'm going to encourage you, right? You heard Fiona say, and some other people give a thumbs up to, like, you just got to push through it, right? If it feels weird, it's only because you're unsure of what to do and what to say and how to say it. Well, we're going to hope to cure all that in the next 48 to 96 hours, right? You all received scripts. You don't have to worry about what to say anymore. And in terms of how you say it, that just takes practice, right? When you learn to play the piano, you don't take 3 lessons and then suddenly book Carnegie Hall and expect to sell tickets, right? That's not how that works. Instead, you've got to keep going and keep going and keep practicing, right? One of the things that baffles me is my opinion about what we do. If you're a listing agent and you are serious about the list side of your business, I believe that you should be practicing or delivering your listing consultation daily. Every day that you work. And so if you work 5 days a week, then you should be practicing or delivering your listing consultation 5 days a week. Now, when I say practicing or delivering, if you're new or newer in the business, that's going to be a lot of practice days for you. I don't want you to be delivering without practice either, right? More experienced agents, you having a listing appointment is that doing it once for the day, right? Because you've done it over and over again. But I'm betting you that almost nobody on this call on a day they don't have a listing appointment runs through their consultation. And I think that's a mistake. Think about how brilliant you will be because of your confidence and your preparedness if you worked on that consultation every single day. Some of you never get to the objection handling piece of the list side, right? P.S., that's another thing that some of you are afraid of. You think that there's more objections on the list side than there are on the buy side. I can tell you that is also completely false, right? There's the same number of objections on each side, and it's about 7 categories on each side, and that's it. So as long as you know objection handlers for each of the 7 categories on each side of the business, you're fine. But some of you never get on the list side to the objection handling piece of it because you're so freaked out about just the main consultation piece. So what we hope to be able to cure for you is, how do you do that? What does it look like? And then set you up with practice schedules, right? One of the things that's going to come out of this is a practice schedule. There's 50 of you on this phone call. That's 25 groups of people. Welcome to your Zoom opportunity, right? You may have 6 or 8 weeks more at home. Why wouldn't you use those 6 or 8 weeks to really practice every single day so that when these restrictions are lifted, you just soar? John Maxwell tells us that everything we want is uphill, right? He also mentions that most people have uphill ambitions and downhill habits, right? Downhill habits is not practicing. Uphill habits is daily practice, because you got to work for that. You got to find time. You've got to schedule it. You've got to find partners, right? If a partner bags it on you, you've got to find the dog or the cat and make them sit for 40 minutes, right? You've got to find somebody to deliver this to. Maybe it's just you taping yourself and then playing it back. P.S. Those of you in this room who consider yourself experienced listing agents, I challenge you in the next 24 to 48 hours to sit and run your consultation into an empty Zoom room, or with somebody on the other side if you want to have kind of a coming back to you, right? Some words coming back to you, and tape it, record it, play it back. Listen to how you sound. Listen to the pauses you take. Are you an person, right? Do you have a bunch of ums? I'm a right person. I know I say right a lot. And I learned that about myself because I listened to myself on video. I still say it a lot, but I don't say it as nearly as often as I used to, right? Because it was brought to my attention by myself. So have you taken those opportunities, and will you use the time that you have right now to dive into that? That's one of the gifts of what we've been given right now. We get to go through this material, and you get time to actually go and practice it. Because I'll tell you that what we're going to teach you is not the way I used to take listings. And when Debbie and I first merged our businesses together, and we used to go out on appointments together, it's not what we used. We didn't use what we're about to teach you. And years into our time together as listing agents, suddenly we decided to shift to this, or a version of this. And trust me when I tell you, we kept taking listings over here the old way while we were learning over here the new thing, practicing back and forth the new thing until we could finally put it on the road, right? It's like when you're the replacement cast for a Broadway show, right? The original cast is still performing 8 shows a week, and the replacement cast is learning the show and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing until they're now good enough, the quality is good enough that the original cast finally bows out and says, thank you very much, we now are out, the replacement cast takes over. Right? That doesn't happen by the replacement cast getting the script and reading it once or twice and then just going out and performing. That doesn't work that way, right? All righty. Mamma mia, is it really 5:52? All right. Somebody has to learn how to say, Rick, shut up, move on. Let's move it along, please. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about step number 1 in your listing process. Who is 761218? No one's gonna own that one? Okay. So the answer is, the question is, can listing agents record their Zoom presentations and share them? What a great idea. So I would say, let's run through.
It's me, Jackie. I don't know why my name doesn't show in there, but it's me, Jackie.
Oh, hello, Jackie.
Hello there. Hello, everyone.
Yeah. So again, if you click the 3 little dots in probably the upper right-hand corner of your screen, it'll say rename, and then you can rename that 761218 to Jackie. So let's get through this material, and then we'll start talking about opportunities for people to kind of share their stuff. One of the things that I just was discussing with the staff this morning was the opportunity as this rolls on for us to start having some practice sessions on Zoom, right? So some of you have done practice sessions with me where I play your seller and then people kind of sit in the room. Well, we can do that via Zoom with a larger audience and have people kind of practice together. Yeah, I'm not sure where your dots are if you don't see them. So, and if you're on your phone, it might be harder. So we'll figure it out offline. So let's talk a little bit about step number 1, right? So step number 1 when you're a listing agent is to create, obviously, appointment opportunities, right? And we're going to cycle back. We talked a whole lot about creating appointments via your database, via referrals, via the source of business that we covered in previous sessions, and we'll get to expireds and open houses for those appointment opportunities. But that really is step number 1. You need to create an appointment. What we're going to bring to you at the tail end of this is the qualification conversation for that appointment. Mostly because I forgot to send that in your packet, and I realized it too late. So therefore, we're not going to have the conversation tonight about qualifying your sellers because you don't have the materials that I need you to have. And so my apologies. So we're going to skip that and put that on Friday and move forward to step number 3. So step number 1, create the appointment. Step number 2, qualify the appointment. Step number 3, pre-listing package, right? Your pre-listing package. Somebody tell me what is a pre-listing package used for? Don't tell me what it is yet. Tell me what it's used for. There are a couple of things to to really understand about that pre-listing package and why it's important for you to have one and use one, what are the things we use that for?
Save time during the actual appointment.
Oh, mamma mia, you got it. High five on that one, Fiona, right? Because for those of you who have worked with and without a pre-listing package, do you agree that it saves you, when you use it well, if you have a valid pre-listing package and you use it well, that it saves you tons of time in the actual appointment? Man, I wish I learned that a whole lot earlier in my career, right? That is so, so true. So, so true. Now, if you use a pre-listing packet and then you don't utilize it as leverage and you just say everything that was in the pre-listing package because you're not confident enough to say, did you review the pre-listing package? Do you have any questions? If you think that the only way that they're going to get that you put things on the MLS is for you to say it all over again, well, then you're missing the point of the pre-listing package, right? And again, that's a confidence thing. And so we're going to talk about what this pre-listing package looks like in just a second. But that's the one main reason we use them. What's the second main reason we use them? They save time and they do one other thing. There we go. One other thing. What is that second thing?
They validate you.
So it pre-sells and validates you as a professional. Exactly right. Right? Remember, most of these people haven't met you when they get your pre-listing package. You're sending this pre-listing package before you meet them, typically. And so it's saving time at the actual consultation, but that whole idea of them receiving something from you, it now pre-sells them on you. Let's talk a little bit about what it actually is, shall we? Those of you who have pre-listing packages, talk to me a little bit about what it is you include in that pre-listing package. Let's make a list. Should I write it? Can you read this if I write on here? So shout them out or stick them in the chat box. What do you got?
Reviews.
So client reviews, which we're going to call testimonials, right? / reviews. What else?
It introduces team.
Say it again.
It introduces your team of experts.
So in intro and about me, like a resume, perhaps.
Yeah, and if you have a team like your admin, your photographer, your people.
Right, and intros to the team. Absolutely. What else?
An intro to KW for those that don't know the company.
Right, so some KW info, absolutely. What else?
Social media, so marketing abilities.
Right, and so Fiona just hit a really important piece of this. The reason this saves you so much time in the actual appointment is because this is where the conversation about, I like to call it exposure, right? Which is another way of saying marketing. This is where the exposure conversation happens. For them to receive and review and see all your pretty stuff and your examples of flyers and your examples of postcards and whatever else you might do, show them copies or versions of the social media advertising you work with, how many MLSs you might belong to, all that stuff that we use to expose their property, that's all in this pre-listing package. So they can kind of turn those pages and say, oh, wow, this is like a comprehensive program here that gets my property out to where all the qualified buyers are. Make sense? And then in the consultation, you're just simply asking, so regarding everything that was in the pre-listing package, I'm curious, were there any questions, anything that, I always like the script, was there anything else somebody else told you that you didn't see in there that we should be talking about? Right? Oh, how embarrassing. Look, there's a napkin in our... That's because I ate peanuts before we started. That's so messy. I didn't want you to see the mess over there. It was clogging up my studio. You probably couldn't even see it because I'm big on my screen and I'm little on your screen, so. And yet it was there and bugging me, so there you go. That's what I get for eating peanuts before I teach. What else? What else is in your pre-listing package?
It asks you to leave a key at the end, which puts in the seller's head that you already got the job.
So what Mike's talking about, I'm going to put on the board here as homework, and then we're going to talk about some of the best homework that's out there, right? Seller homework. Seller homework is the reason, in my opinion, or one of the main reasons you deliver this pre-listing package. It does all these other things too, and yet the seller homework is the best part of it. And the seller homework that we encourage you to include are things like, please write us a paragraph or two about what you love about the house, or bullet point your 10 favorite things about your property, right? You want to work in, they live there. Trust me, they know the house better than you do. And so again, we sometimes want to come on in and say, I'm the marketing genius. I'm the expert here. So I will walk around your home for 7.5 minutes and be able to go and write something brilliant to communicate all of the lovely qualities of your home. Here's the deal. Include them. That we talk about partnership, and then we don't do things in a partnership manner with our sellers. Right? So include them in that. Part of the homework should be, tell us what you love about the house. Why did you buy this? What were the surprises? Like if you had to pick one thing that you're going to miss when you leave this house, what is it? Can you describe that for me? Give them a form that asks those questions. We've built one for you. I'll tell you where to go to get all that late today or on Friday. And so utilize those kinds of documents so that they can write things out. They feel a part of the process. Give them a sheet and ask them for all of the improvements. You know, the 717 improvements that they've done since they lived there for 9 months. Because they want to tell you about them anyway. So let's just give them some homework that gives them an opportunity to put all that stuff down. And then the good news is, when somebody asks, do you have a list of improvements? He's like, yep, here it is. Because they wrote it. Let them get all that stuff out. Because it saves time and saves them feeling like the things that are important to them. If you don't ask about all that stuff, they feel like it's not important to you. And if it's important to them, it has to be important to you. Even if it's not relevant or important to the sale of the property, it still has to be important to you. And so what I found is seller homework, asking all those kinds of questions and having them do all that and write all that stuff out so that their words are being used in the description on the brochure or in the remarks. That helps them feel like they're being heard, and it helps them feel a part of the process. Fiona.
I also get them to write their monthly bills down, so the utility bills, so we get all that information like up front.
Love that. Love that, right? And so you can do that as part of seller homework. I used to do it as part of the qualification conversation. And what's interesting is that what I figured out over time was it was a weird place to do it up front in the qualification, right? I had this form that asked me to ask those questions, so I would ask them. But it sounded weird, so I moved it to here as well. I love that idea. Kimberly?
I get them to fill out the disclosures up front so that I'm not sitting there while they figure out how old they've lived in the place. We can get the lead disclosure, inclusion, exclusion, and property disclosures done right there. So all I have to do when I get back to the office or a scanner is just scan them in.
So I love giving them that upfront warning. I'm not sure I love that they're filling them out without you there, only because when there's questions, they need to have you there. So I think there's a balancing act there. It's one of the things that when we get to what we're not including, like important documentation, I might hold back. What you might want to do is send it along and say, there are maybe kind of highlight some of the ones that they might need to go and find information about, and then have them ready with that information so that they are filling them out. Because the other reason, I know this sounds paranoid perhaps, but the other reason I like to have them fill them out with me is that now I know they've filled them out. They didn't give them to somebody else to fill out. They didn't have, you know, Auntie Margie or whoever filling them out who's only lived there for 10 minutes. Or I just like to see that they've filled them out. And I love the idea of giving them an upfront look at it so they can gather that information, right? That helps them and helps you. Yes, Donna.
I also asked them to have 2 keys available.
Yeah, that's the one we're getting to, right? Because that's where Mike started, and we're going to cycle right back to that sucker, because the best part of homework that I ever gave was the idea of please have 2 sets of keys to the front door ready for me when I arrive at your house. And again, my pre-listing package went out. I did a 2-step, right? So I went and looked at the house first and then brought them back to the office for the actual consultation as a second step that night or the following day. And so my pre-listing package arrived before the first step, before they even met me.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that when you have as a part of seller homework, the idea of having keys made, and then you arrive for the walkthrough and they say things like, oh, I made you your keys.
We're done.
Sign here, right? I mean,
conversation from there.
We don't have to have too much more of a conversation. They've already hired me. They're giving me the keys to their house.
Exactly.
Right? So recognize that seller homework is a version of a close. It's the written version. It's your pre-listing package version of a close. Let's just close them then, right? Remember, we're salespeople, and salespeople close, right? Sales techniques tell us that we need to close for the business, not just wait around and hope that someone says, yes, you are the one. Because trust me, if you wait around and hope that someone says you're the one, you're almost never the one, because you're not behaving like someone they want to hire. Remember I said a session or 2 ago, you're always modeling behavior. And if you're modeling this behavior where you're sitting back all nice and polite with your hands in your lap, waiting for someone to say, oh, you're so nice and polite with your hands in your lap, I think you're perfect to represent my house, you're not going to get hired very often. When you demonstrate to people a level of confidence and the fact that you know how to get the job done, and I'm going to demonstrate to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that I know how to get the job done with buyers for your property by making sure I get the job done with you tonight. That's modeling behavior that people want to be in business with. Trust me when I say to you, that is not salesman-y. It's just the opposite of wussy, right? It's you don't want to be a wussy agent, because wussy agents don't get hired. You've got to have, I can remember one time, let's have this conversation about this word, and then I'll answer Kimberly's question. So I was in my office here in the Ridgefield Market Center, and somebody came into my office really upset, like almost crying upset. And they said, do you have a minute? I said, sure. I said, what's the matter? I said, well, I was just calling expireds. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, I got this guy on the phone, and I went through the script, and they said to me, they kind of cut me off in a nasty tone. They said, you know what? I wouldn't hire you if you were the last real estate agent on the planet. You are way too aggressive for me. And I got excited, and I said, that's awesome. What did you say next? That was the wrong thing to say, because clearly they were not excited, right? They were upset and kind of crying, and I kind of missed some of that. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said I was sorry, and I hung up. And I thought, oh man, like they were upset because someone called them aggressive. Guys, that is not a dirty word. Who wants to hire the opposite of aggressive to sell my most valuable asset? Who? Would any of you choose the wussy real estate agent? Because that's what you're talking about. And then we always have to get into this semantics game, right? When I teach live, the good news now is I can just push mute, so I don't have to hear the discussion about, well, you know, it's the word aggressive and the connotations of the word aggressive. I prefer the word assertive. Oh, come on, right? That's not the point. And I'm not sitting here saying, go out and be like a slimy salesperson. That is so not what I'm talking about. I don't think I've ever once come across that way in my entire 21-year career. At least I hope I haven't. And yet I have been aggressive and confident since the minute I started. Because what I recognized is that when your job is to walk in and just be the one to get hired, nobody hires somebody who's not aggressive and confident. You've got to be both. And if you have no idea what you're doing, you've got to be aggressive and confident and fake it till you make it. And or find such an incredible amount of time to practice that you get rid of all those nerves and that uncertainty really, really fast and move to aggressive and confident.
Hey, Rick.
Because that's what people want to hire, right? Yes, ma'am.
Just because I've taken Ignite 9,000 times, could you spend a minute talking about showing up and being the one?
Oh, have I not talked about being the one?
Not enough.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay, yes. So absolutely I can. And let me answer Kimberly's question. Why 2 sets of keys? Because I'm going to put one in the lockbox and keep one in my office. I like to have a spare set of keys in my office, just in case some dopey person loses the keys in the lockbox, or every once in a while, a buyer's agent will show the house and put the keys in their pocket and then leave, right? Ever have that happen? And then the homeowner gets home and says, I can't get in my house because not only did they, is there no keys, which they couldn't get to anyway, but they locked the door. And I don't have, or whatever, right? So I just like to have a set of keys that I keep outside of the lockbox. Stuff happens. Okay. What was I supposed to do, Donna? Oh, yeah. Talk about the one. So what Donna is asking me to talk about is the simple idea of how you win as a listing agent. Right? And the simple way you win as a listing agent is showing up and just being the one. Now, what does that mean? Right? There's a difference between acting like the one you think they want to see and just being the one. Right? Being the one has everything to do with confidence. Being the one has everything to do with taking charge. Being the one has everything to do with knowing your scripts. Being the one has everything to do with professionalism. Being the one means taking control of conversations, not in a rude or irritating way, but in a way that all of a sudden people, did you ever, and I don't mean to throw young performers under the bus. I really don't. I was one myself once. And so I don't mean for it to be judgmental in that way. Did you ever go to either an amateur theater production or like a high school musical production, right? Most of us have been to those productions. And did you ever have someone come out, like walk out on stage and you're like, oh, this is going to be really good. And you could just tell by the way they walked out on stage, you were like, oh man, this is probably not going to be as good as I hoped it was going to be, right? And then they open their mouth. And because it's high school, sometimes people get cast in high school musicals that can't sing, right? At least that was the case when I was doing high school musicals. And some of the things that I've seen, sometimes people get cast that really shouldn't be in a musical, but there's limited amounts of people, so they do the best you can. Versus someone who walks out on stage who just owns it. Like they walk out on stage and regardless of what else is going on the stage, you're watching them. Bam, they walked on, the whole thing is going on over here, but your eyes are on them. And then it gets to the point where they have to speak or they have to sing and they open their mouth and it's like, oh, now I can relax. I'm just going to relax and enjoy the ride. That's what being the one is for you to a seller. You walk in and they just immediately know and feel like you're going to take care of everything. It's like, oh, all right, well, Rick's here now. Okay, we don't have to worry anymore. Oh, thank goodness. Whew, thank goodness. I wasn't sure how we were going to get through this, but. And now anything that I do or say isn't questioned. Sometimes it's conversed about, right? That doesn't mean that there's not conversation, but I will tell you what I learned from my early days to my later days as a listing agent is that when you decide that listing is yours to take, that is a level of confidence that is very difficult for people to resist. You know, oftentimes you may hear that the people who have the most passion around something are typically the ones who win. I think that passion and confidence kind of go hand in hand. When you are passionate about what you can do for someone, when you're passionate about how you can perform for someone, that shows up as a level of confidence. Now, for those of you who are new or newer in the business, I want you to be very, very clear. One of the things that I did not say made you the one was a ton of experience, right? You didn't hear me say that. So if you're new or newer on this call, that's a positive for you because you don't have that experience. If you are experienced on this call, I want that also to be a wake-up call for you to say, okay, if I don't feel like I'm kind of walking in and being the one, and I have all this experience, what else do I need to do? Am I relying on experience too much? Do I need to be someone different in those scenarios and combine that with my experience and skill? The answer is maybe, perhaps, right? From a body language perspective, it's this instead of this. There's a difference how you show up, right? I don't have to be this big strapping, because I'm not, I never was. And yet when you show up with this, that's enough, right? I can remember one time when I showed up for a listing appointment. Oh, Christmas, we got to wrap. So we'll get to the scripts, I promise. We'll get to the scripts on Friday. For those of you who have been down this path with me before, this is just kind of how we roll. Sometimes we get on a conversation and we just go with it, right? The good news is we have at least all of April and maybe some of May. So we've got plenty of time to deal with everything we need to get through, right? And so the idea of, I showed up at this listing appointment one time, and when I started in the business, I started in 1998, and so I was 28 years old. And when I was 28 years old, I looked like I was 17 years old, right? You can all put in the chat about how that's the same now. You know, I still look 17, maybe 27. We'll get, let's be a little bit real, right? The reality is if I don't get my hair cut soon, there's going to be so much gray showing up on the sides that all that goes out the window. So the idea was, I was 28. I looked like I was 17. I looked to head off to this listing appointment, and the way I used to show up at the front door, because for me, everything was a script and everything was choreographed, and I did everything the same way. And so when I showed up to someone's front door, I would either ring the bell or knock, depending on what was available to me. I would take 2 steps back and then turn, so that when I heard the door opening, I could turn and take a step towards them, right? Because that to me was me not like sitting, looking in the windows, waiting for the door to come out. I wasn't like upon them. And for me, it was more of the kind of getting myself together in my head. And as they open, I get to kind of make my entrance. Even though it's just a turn and a step, it's still an entrance, which immediately conveys a level of confidence. And so she opened the door. It was the summer, so she opened it. The screen was still there. I did my little turn and my step forward, and I said, "Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rick Scott. It's lovely to meet you." And she said, without missing a beat, she said, "Oh my God, you're young." Just like that. And so in my head, I had to figure out, okay, so what do you do with that, right? So for those of you who look way younger than maybe you are, or for those of you who are just really young and getting started in the business, here's the thing. You can't let those kinds of things throw you, right? Or else your oneness goes away. And so I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "It's the oldest I've ever been before. Let's get started." And so I just kind of took her comment and threw it out. And for some of you, that's like one of those panic moments. Oh my God, she's already criticizing me. I'm not going to get the job. Maybe I should look older. What should I do? How should I put my glasses on, right? All that stuff goes in your head instead of just hearing it, having some version of an answer for it, right? I could have chuckled. I chose to say it's the oldest I've ever been, threw it out, and then took control again. Let's get started. And she opened the door, and in I walked, and we got started, right? So as we wrap tonight, because again, I did promise Marissa I would end a little early. As we wrap tonight, what I want you to think about is, what does that look like for you? If you had to make a list of things that you know you need to work on in order to be the one, right, which has nothing to do with arrogance, and it has nothing to do with being slick. It has everything to do with a level of confidence that you marry with skill to be the best version of you that you can possibly be for your client. Is that what you were looking for, Donna? Okay, perfect. I can't disappoint Gilbert or she won't come back. In my house, we call Donna Gilbert the chutney of Ignite. And that's a reference to about 25 years ago. Steve made, we had our whole family over for Mother's Day. We were living in Stamford at the time, had our whole family over for Mother's Day. And Steve made this delicious chutney that is still in my refrigerator and still good. We have no idea what he put in that chutney, but it's preserved forever. And so Donna is like the chutney of Ignite. It was also delicious, which also makes Donna Gilbert the chutney of delights of Ignite, because she is a delight, right? All right, guys, so you all got scripts earlier today. I want you to bring them back with you on Friday. I want you to keep pushing on that second 30% of your database. I want you to think a little bit more about how you can use this pre-listing package, because the very first thing we're going to do on Friday is finish our conversation on pre-listing package. We're going to show you, we're going to talk with you a little bit about what's in here, show you a quick example of one, and talk about how you're delivering it to them. All of these things have a system attached to them. And then we're going to move right from there into these scripts and get probably right up to pricing before we finish on Friday, and then we'll jump into pricing on Monday.